Hi everyone, I'm Shelly and you're watching There's No Place Like Home. It feels like it's been forever since I have uploaded a video. I did upload one last week. It was like 3 minutes long, just to let you all know why I have not been publishing any videos. But I've had a really rough couple of weeks. My daughter was in the hospital for 5 days. Thankfully, she was discharged on Saturday night. So I was there with her at the hospital the whole time. I stayed there with her. And while we were at the hospital still on Saturday, my brother passed away. So I really feel like I am emotionally running on empty right now. But I think that continuing to do what I love doing is really going to help me in this time. So I'm going to do that now, and I'm going to do another Homeschooling 101 video, and it's going to be about geography made easy. One of my favorite things to talk about when it comes to homeschooling is the idea that you do not need to do things the way that school does. We always tend to think of education as coming in these prepackaged curriculums, mainly textbooks, and it seems to be a bit suffocating for a lot of families. I would have to say that for most families, it can get suffocating at times. So what I've learned over the years is that you can learn virtually any subject other than math. Math is a little tricky, although some people have been able to do it without a formal curriculum. And geography is just one of those things that, while not a lot of people will use actual textbooks for geography, I know that people do use what you would call curriculum, like workbooks or some sort of formalized routine that they use for geography. So I really like to integrate as many subjects into our everyday life. So I like to try to learn some things holistically. If we are not learning them holistically, I do like to try to incorporate different subjects into one lesson. So for example, if we're doing one lesson, instead of just saying, okay, this is our history lesson, depending on what you're learning about, you could say, all right, well, that lesson covered history and social studies and science and geography and language arts. So I'm a multitasker when it comes to doing that one lesson because I've got so many kids that are homeschooling. But honestly, if I was only homeschooling one child, I think that I would still do things the same way, because we don't break life into subjects. So why do we approach education that way? So anyway, what I wanted to give you some ideas about today is geography and some ways that you can bring that into your homeschool where you don't necessarily need a formalized routine in order to teach it to your kids. And I'm just going to go through a list of ideas that I have either already used or that I just thought of and that I might use at some point in the future with my own kids. So first of all, during read-alouds, one example that I have is the Percy Jackson series. You know what? Any series by Rick Riordan is the perfect chance for you to incorporate not just geography, but lots of different subjects into your homeschool routine just through read aloud. And it's something that I really enjoyed doing with my kids when we were reading, because if you've ever read the Percy Jackson books, you will know that the Percy Jackson books, while it's mainly about, the Greek gods and the Greek goddesses and everything, it goes over so much geography because they travel to different places throughout this book, and it talks about different landmarks, like it talks about the Arch in Missouri, and it talks about Graceland in Tennessee, and it's such a fun way for your kids to learn about things in the United States in a way that is, just more amusing for them than just, say, trying to map things out like in a textbook or filling out a worksheet about it. So as you're reading a chapter, and I'm still using Percy Jackson as an example, but you could do this with any read aloud that you're doing with your kids. If you come across an area where they travel to or where it is mentioned, after you are done reading that chapter, you could always go to a map. You could ask your kids to find it on the map, or you could even give them a blank map of their own, and you could ask them to label it on their map. You might even want to, if your kids are really interested in it, I think that Percy Jackson talks about, they talk about Las Vegas, and I mentioned Tennessee. I wish I could remember off the top of my head all the different states they talk about, and the camp is in New York. If your kids are really interested in one of those areas, you might even want to just throw on a documentary and have your kids learn something about that. So that is one way to incorporate geography into your homeschool without necessarily teaching it separately, but by just having it be a part of something that you're already doing anyway. So another way that you can incorporate geography, and this is just a very natural way for your kids, is just by having maps visibly posted in your house. So next to me, I have a world map right on my living room wall. And if I were to go out in my kitchen, I actually posted a picture of this on Instagram a while ago. If I were to go out in my kitchen right now, above my coffee pot, I have a map of the United States. And this is something that, yes, we do use it with our homeschool. And, for like the examples that I was just talking about, I might say, okay, go to the map and show me where this place is. But what I have found is that my kids in their spare time, I will often find them just looking at the maps, just, pointing their finger, seeing where different things are. My one daughter, she actually had a piece of paper and she was using a ruler and she was measuring like how far it is from Pennsylvania to England. Now, obviously that wouldn't work out, mileage wise or anything. But what was happening was that not only was she getting practice with measuring with a ruler, but she was seeing where these places are on this map. And so that's something that's really nice with kids. It's something that is called strewing, about just having interesting things around your house that are educational and that your kids might find intriguing. So yeah, just keep things like that around your house, or maybe a few atlases that they might want to page through. Because, and the maps book, I've shown a maps book on a few of my videos. I wish I would have thought of it to bring it over here, but I'll leave a link for it in the description box. But it's a book and it's made for children, but it's about different, well, not all of them, but it's about a lot of different countries. And not only does it show where it is, and it also shows like a bigger outline of what it looks like, but it's just filled with little drawings and little symbols showing what each country is known for. It's really, really interesting. And my kids love to just sit and look at that maps book. And that has really been a big help for us when we've been learning about different areas as well. So a third idea that I have for you is with songs. My kids learned all 50 states by singing the song, 50 Nifty United States. We sang it every single day. And that is how, if you ask my kids what the states are, they will just sing the song for you. So and it's something that even my older kids had a fun time doing because they thought it was silly, but they also knew that it was helping them to learn the names of the states. Because unfortunately, there are a lot of adults nowadays who probably could not tell you all the names of the 50 states. I know that just a few years ago, before finding this song, if somebody would have asked me to name all 50 states, I probably would have had a hard time remembering them all. But when you put something to a tune that kids are going to remember and that's fun for them, they're going to remember it. And now I have to say that I remember them too. So a fourth idea, and I mentioned these before, blank maps. Just keep blank maps around your house and have them at your disposal because they come in so handy depending on what it is that you are learning about. So one thing that my kids have been doing for a while is that every day they have a blank United States map, and I will write the name of the state on the board and the abbreviation and the capital. They write that on the back of the map, and then they have to go find the state on our map in the kitchen, and then they have to label it on their own map. So that's an idea for something that you could do with your kids. It doesn't necessarily have to be the United States. Maybe you could have them label different countries in Africa, or different countries in Europe, or different countries in South America. It really is up to you what you would want to have them doing, but it's a nice idea, and you can find lots of free printable maps online. So that's not even something that you necessarily have to pay for. And another great way to use these blank maps is if you are learning a particular lesson and a location is mentioned, after you're done with that lesson, you can have your kids just find that location on their map and label it. And depending on how you learn things, like if you do unit studies, you might want to have like a new map for each unit that you're learning about. It's all up to you. And that's the nice thing about homeschooling. You do things the way that they work best for you. But, it will help to give them a better idea of where things are in the world, especially as you're talking about them. And one other idea that I actually came across, or that I actually do for these blank maps, is like, my kids love animals. They learn about animals all the time. And so a lot of times you'll find out where animals are indigenous to. So that's another thing that you can do with the maps. You can label, for example, if they're studying salamanders, you might be able, that would probably be a lot of area on a map, so that was probably not a good example, but just pretend that salamanders aren't like everywhere, and you could have them label the different areas where salamanders are. Or you could even have them do something like, you know, lines for salamanders and polka dots for crocodiles, and, you know, just different animals that they're learning about, and have them label the areas on the map, the countries where they are found. Another idea that I have used with my kids is documentaries. And I did mention this before when I was talking about when we were doing the Percy Jackson Read Aloud. Another thing that we use the documentaries for is for German. So my kids are learning German this year. And rather than learning just the language, I wanted them to know more about Germany in general. So what we did was we watched several videos about Germany, not all at once. I think we were watching like one every week, and we would focus on a different area every week to learn more about Germany. Now, obviously, they found Germany on the map, because that's the first thing that I do. I tell everyone, okay, find Germany on the map, and they all go over to the map and they have to see who can find it. But, you know, one of the things that we learned about with the Germany documentaries, we watched one on culture and traditions of Germany, and we watched one on tourist attractions in Germany. We watched one about the forests, the forests of Germany. We watched one on like the folk tales and legends of Germany. And then we watched yet another one about different countries surrounding Germany that also speak the German language. So then we were able to learn about those places as well, you know, like Austria, and I believe it's some areas of Switzerland that speak German. But that is just another idea that you can use documentaries for. Or if a place happens to come up in one of your lessons, again, if it's something that really catches your child's interest, watch a documentary on it. I think one time in passing, when I was reading something to my kids, I mentioned Easter Island. So my 10-year-old got really, really interested in Easter Island. So a documentary on Easter Island was sure to come. And again, yeah, that's a good way to grab your kids' attention. If you see that they really want to know about something, even if it's not necessarily what your lesson was about, by all means do it. And that goes for, you know, geography too, any subject. But since I'm talking about geography, documentary is the way to go. So a sixth way is just walks around your neighborhood. You can have your kids just really be observant. A lot of times we're so used to where we live that we don't really pay attention to the things around us. We're so used to seeing things as they are that we don't really take it in. So take a walk around the neighborhood. You know, look at the terrain. Do you live in an area with mountains, or is it relatively flat? Do you live in an area that is very grassy and has lots of trees? Or are you in an area that is more of an urban area with lots of buildings and sidewalks? Do you live in a desert area? All of these things are things that you can ask your kids to look at just in your own neighborhood. And it is teaching them about terrains and even about habitats, depending on, well, not anywhere. It doesn't even matter. We all live in a habitat, don't we? So have them pay attention to their surroundings, and especially if you do have any monuments in your area, if you have any landmarks in your area, whether they are well known or just locally known, it doesn't matter. Have your kids pay attention to them. And, you know, you could even ask them to draw a map of the neighborhood, and you could even teach them how to draw it to scale, you know, depending on their age. Now, obviously, a really young child would have a more rudimentary map, but you might have an older child who is really interested in mapping, cartography. And you could even have them do it to scale, just a map of the neighborhood, or again, depending on their age, you could even do it of your town. And the last, I believe this is the last, second last idea that I have for you is on road trips. So back in 2011, when my son graduated from AIT, we drove from Eastern Pennsylvania to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. And that actually was a great geography lesson for my kids, because as we were driving, not only did we get to drive through, well, we drove through, the rest of Pennsylvania, then we went through West Virginia, then we went to Ohio, then it was Indiana, then Illinois, then Missouri. So they got to go through all of these states. And the whole time that we were driving, I was trying to keep them interested in where we were. So we would, we would try to point out different license plates, cars from different states. We would follow that. We would look at, again, the terrain of where we were at. So West Virginia was like very woodsy, lots of green there. And then when we got to like Indiana, it was very flat. When we got to Missouri actually started becoming very green again as well. We got to see the different animals that were coming out as we were driving. And yeah, it was a really interesting geography lesson for my kids. And it's so different when you're seeing things in real life. And I have to also point out that see, like just driving past the landmarks too. Like we drove past the arch in St. Louis. We drove past, I think it's Wrigley Field in Chicago. So all of these things, again, they're seeing these things with their own eyes. It's one thing to hear about it, like in Percy Jackson, or to see it on the TV. But even if you don't get to stop and actually visit it, if you can just see it there with their own eyes, I think that it really makes an impression on them that is going to stick with them better than if they're just kind of looking at something on a screen or in a book. Okay, and the last idea that I have for you is for unit studies. Now, a lot of unit studies will integrate geography, and they will do it in the ways that I have been talking about with you. Like if you're learning about an animal, then you will start talking about the place where that animal comes from. Or if you're learning about a certain point in history, you can start talking about where this happened and what it was like there. So the ideas that I mentioned are very unit study like, and that's because we really do use a lot of unit studies here. So that really does influence me. But another idea is just to have maybe a geography unit study. And so I was thinking about it, and I could come up with so many different ideas for geography unit studies. And I thought to myself, you know what? I'm going to do that for my next video. I am going to brainstorm a bunch of different geography unit study ideas, and I'm going to present them to you in the next video, Lord willing, the next video, because I've learned in this past week or two that I can't always guarantee what I'm planning on doing. But I'm hoping to be able to present a bunch of geography unit study ideas to you to maybe just bring some life into your homeschool, some new ideas, things that your kids might be interested in. And I hope that it helps you. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet and would like to hear more of what I have to say, I would love if you would do that. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave one over on Instagram because YouTube disables my comments. And if you like my work and would like to check out my Patreon page, I will leave a link in the description box for that as well. And I hope you have a great day.